And Joey just joined us, so hey, Joey.
Hey, Adam.
How are you doing this evening?
Good. How are you?
Doing well, thanks. Joey, right now we've got Rick on. Rick is representing the owner developer, and then Christina Potts, she's a neighbor to the property. She's on, and then Christina and Rick, Joey, Brian with Franklin just joined us. He's a city planner with planning staff down at Franklin. So that's all we've got so far. We're just to let y'all know we're budgeting an hour for this meeting, and the first 10 minutes I figured would just be kind of loose introductions and just waiting for people to join in case anybody else. So we'll give it a couple more minutes before we get going. Rick, did you end up talking to Margaret Martin? Was she going to join us as well?
Yes, she has a previous commitment, I think, for she was out at West Haven, but she was going to try to join us. She said she would if she could.
Okay, that's fine.
I'd like to say hi to Christina. It's been 3 years, Christina, since we sat together at the Franklin open hearing.
Yes.
All right, we've got a Tom joining us.
Recording in progress.
Hello, Tom. Phone number. All right, I'm gonna give it maybe one more minute. I've got a Tom, Joey with City of Franklin planning staff is on. Ann Peterson, Alderman, I believe that's you that joined. Good evening. How are you doing, Ann? Christina Potts, a neighbor, is on. Myself, and then there's a phone number who I don't recognize. And we're gonna give it one more minute, and then we're gonna get going. All right, and then there's an Elizabeth just joined. Okay, everyone, I'm going to go ahead and kick this off. Joey, please jump in if you need to say anything on behalf of Franklin planning staff, but if not, I'll kind of go by the general format of what's written down.
Hold on, Clara.
Excuse me? All right, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone so that we can. All right. So I've got everyone muted. It's not to be rude. It's just for background noise. And once we get to, we'll have a question and answer session. And when we get to the question and answer session, feel free to unmute and ask a question or type it into the chat, and I'll go from there. I'm sure if you've got the flyer or the notice, we're looking at a property at 1624 West Main. We've called it Downs in Maine. It probably won't be the project name, but it's at the corner of Downs and Maine on the western corner. And let me go to the next. Let's see here. So I'm going to spend 10 minutes. We kind of went through just waiting for people to get on. I'll give a formal presentation. It won't take too long. The majority of the time is going to be question and answer. We're recording this. I know this is something that will be handed over to planning staff, and sometimes people ask for it. So that's just kind of a rundown of what we've done before on Zoom meetings. And here's the property that we're going to be discussing tonight. This is, I'm sure everybody on the call is familiar with this area. We are just southwest of downtown Franklin. West Main comes down and intersects with Downs Boulevard. There's a stoplight right here. And the subject property is 2 parcels. There's nothing on the property right now. It's just vacant land. If you drive past, it just is looks like a field with some trees in the back, kind of gently slopes up from the road up to the back. And that's both of those are about 0.8 acres. And we're going to be proposing a rezone to a PD on those properties, and that's what we're here to talk about. So the site data, we've got 2 parcels, 1624 and 1628 West Main, 0.8 acres. The current zoning is OR, which is office residential. The proposed zoning is PD, planned development, and we're in Ward District 4, which is Ms. Margaret Martin's district. And the PD zoning, so we spoke with Franklin early on in the process, kind of going through what we want this corner to look like, what we want it to be, and how we want it to behave. And very early on, because of a couple constraints that I'm going to get into in a minute, there's a modification of standards we're going to be asking from planning, which is why we did a PD. Otherwise, everything that we're doing would fit comfortably in a commercial neighborhood zoning or a commercial center zoning. And that is something that we did explore, but because of the modification of standards, we're going to go to a PD. And if anybody's on this call that don't understand what a PD is, it's a specific type of zoning where we kind of drill in and really define what's going to go on the property. And there will be a normal rezoning process, but through that process, in addition to just reviewing it as a base level zoning, more plans are involved. A development plan, what's called a development plan, is submitted and it's reviewed by the Franklin departments, and it kind of sets in stone what can go on the property. So rather than just do a blanket zoning of commercial or residential or industrial or some type of blanket zoning, the PD becomes more specific so that what is proposed on the PD is what gets built. It kind of gives a level of assurance of what's going to go on there. And there are certain things that we can do within the PD that allow us to form fit it to the property and to the intersection. And that's why we're doing a PD, is because we're going to be asking for modification of standards, and that's mostly done through the PD process. It does go to a planning commission meeting, which is a public hearing. It goes to BOMA meetings, and there will be a public hearing at BOMA. I put about 4 to 5 months. That's just a general time frame that I put on zonings for just about anywhere. It's not exactly that, but that's the process. Planning commission, BOMA, and then it goes through. And this is a zoning process. Again, this is not a site plan where we're going to get a permit to build something. This is what I would call an entitlement process, where we're going to zone the property. And I'm going to show you now what we're looking at. So it's rotated just a little bit. Downs Boulevard is on your right side. West Main is now on the bottom. And we're proposing a commercial building, a small neighborhood commercial building. Right now, it's drawn at about 6,500 square feet. I'd say by the time we get through final design and you start implementing the final architectural pieces, it'll probably shrink a little bit, maybe get down to 6,200 square feet, 6,000 square feet, somewhere in that range right there. We are going to implement a driveway off of Downs Boulevard. That'll be sort of the main in and out drive. That'll be two-way, one way out, one way in. And then down here off of West Main, we're proposing another access. The neighbor to our left here, I believe Miss Christina Potts is on the call as well. And that's the neighbor on the left side. There's an existing gravel driveway that comes up here that crosses over this property. And so we would be maintaining a drive on this side of the property, just reorienting it so that we have a paved drive in and a paved drive out that would continue to provide access for that house as well. There's right-of-way dedication required. So along West Main, the city has gone forward through Envision Franklin and other means to say these are what we believe these roads are going to be developed as in the future. And as properties develop, we have to dedicate right-of-way to accommodate those roadways. And so we've taken that into consideration as well. And you can see on the plan that West Main is dedicated to be close to almost a 70-foot right-of-way. And we measure from the center line, and half of that is 34 and a half. It's really a 69-foot right-of-way, but half of that is 34 and a half feet. And then there's the dedication line. And then we're going above and beyond by providing another 12 feet of dedication, because we worked with the engineering department and they explained to us that this is an intersection that may have additional turn lanes. And so we're accommodating that as well. Over on Downs, you can see there's ample right-of-way. Half the right-of-way doesn't even get to the property line. So there's plenty of room to widen Downs or improve the intersection along that side of it. One of the main points I want to bring up and why we're doing a modification of standards is that this property right now is zoned OR, office residential, and it's unlikely it'll be developed as a house. It's just not practical for this to be a house, being on a significant intersection and surrounded by commercial zoning. And so that's not very realistic. And office is probably a little bit of an underutilization of this corner. And so if you look under Envision Franklin, this is proposed to be a neighborhood mixed use kind of underlying land use is what we call it. And neighborhood mixed use commercial, that's what we're aiming for, to line up with Envision Franklin and to propose something here that would be very much in keeping with Franklin and this intersection and location. The building that we're proposing is going to be a one-story use building. Now the facade, the proposed facade may get to look like a story and a half, and we want it to be conducive to neighborhood commercial. We don't want it to stand up real high and big and blocky. We want it to look very nice and modern and beautiful. We want this to be a presence on the corner to kind of set the pattern. And so the architecture is meant to look very nice for this building. There'll probably be 2 tenants in this building at 6,000 square feet. So there'll be maybe one we know of right now that an optometric office is interested in it. And so optometry office, dental office, chiropractor, those types of uses, which are clinic uses, are what we're proposing. We're also proposing business office uses. And if somewhere down the line, because we want to make sure that we're accommodating any, nice use here that would work well. We have a restaurant in case like a coffee shop, small something, but parking would probably prevent anything of any significance here. And so, again, going for small neighborhood commercial, just fitting of the area. Now, the modification of standards, and I want to check my time. Yeah, we're okay. The modification of standards, and this is the big reason why we're asking that, is that as this is zoned OR, there is residential to the north of us and to the left of us, where Ms. Potts is right here. Those residential zonings, and then this being an OR or a commercial zoning, requires that the commercial lot propose transitional buffers, and this has been instituted as of the zone change last year. So what that looks like is, if you can see the dashed lines on your screen, there's 3 zones. You have a zone 1 transition buffer that is meant to provide your vegetative screening. You have the zone 2 transition buffer that says you're not supposed to put any buildings in it, and it's a very limited buffer. And then you have the zone 3 transition buffer that's way down here that restricts your building heights and restricts certain things in your buffer. So if you can follow my mouse, in fact, I think I can annotate and have a, yeah, this will work okay if you can follow along. So this area right here is zone 1 buffer, and if developed as is, it would not allow for these parking spaces to be here. And then this would all be vegetation. This would be then a transition. And then you have this buffer here where the building, some of it could remain, but really you're left with this square right down here is your full unencumbered building envelope way down here. And so by holding all of these, let me clear all of this, by holding all of these buffers to the letter of the law, it starts to render this site undevelopable. And as we start to look at the development patterns in Franklin and how development is coming down West Main, and there's commercial on all of the other 3 corners, or industrial and 2 commercials, there's a church, commercial property, and the Vulcan Material across the street. As you come down that corridor of all commercial, it's unlikely that this remains just single-family houses. And it is strongly likely that on a long enough timeline that this continues to develop as small neighborhood commercial for the next several parcels as it transitions down West Main. And so what we would be asking for is not a whole lot. We still can do the building here, but what we're asking for is that this parking be allowed in the buffer so that whenever this becomes commercial someday and the next becomes commercial, it provides more of a seamless transition rather than have a big non-touch buffer in between that kind of creates an island between the 2 properties. So if this were to be allowed, it allows for a more seamless transition for future build out rather than building a buffer where it isolates and puts each other on an island. And with the size of the parcels here, that becomes very challenging in the development side. So that's why we're doing the PD, is to propose something that would work for this property and for the future properties on down the line. So let me, whoops. I don't know how to do that. There we go. And so the next slide you're going to see is the proposed site. It's a little bit harder to see the black and white lines. So I underlaid the aerial and I hatched the building so you could start to get a scale and a sense of what it looks like today. So if you drive out there today, a couple power poles and embankment along the edges, we would be up the embankment and into the side a little bit. We're leaving 25-foot trees back here. And then you can kind of see where most of the trees along downs are already out in the right of way. So those aren't on our property anyway. And the only trees that are on there are this back corner right here. And we would be preserving the back area right there. So let me go on. I think that's it. So most of the time I find these are better if I give you a good taste of it and then let you guys ask the questions. I don't know what your thoughts are, your feelings, questions, or anything like that. And so what I'm going to do, because I'm not a pro at all of this, but I'm going to check. Nobody's chatted a question. So I'll turn it over to, if anybody wants to ask a question, if you want to unmute yourself and fire away. And I know I'm not that good of a presenter. I couldn't have answered every question.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Who is this?
I'm a property owner at 1636 West Main, next to Miss
Yes, ma'am.
Potts.
Yes,
How
ma'am.
will that affect our property?
Well, for the time being, the proposed development and zoning would not affect your property. And you're one over, so if you can you see my mouse on the screen? Is this your property over here?
I'm just on the
Okay.
telephone call.
You're what, ma'am?
I'm on the phone call. I'm not on the Zoom.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you're 2 properties down if you're on West Main. I think I understand you. And it would not really affect anything about your property today, meaning as you drive up to your house, as you operate and use your property, it wouldn't affect it in any way because we're 1 property over. I will say that I'm a civil engineer. I should have introduced myself at the start. I normally do that, and I apologize. I jump in. My name is Adam Sager, and I'm a civil engineer, and we are hired to take rezonings through and do development and things like that. And so I'm not going to be probably the best person to be a market, but I sit in on a lot of meetings. We do a lot of developments, and I can tell you that whenever commercial develops on the corner, it usually starts to come down the street on both sides, or it usually increases property value. That's what I've seen, and usually starts to set a tone. What our goal is to set the tone for this corner that something Franklin can be proud of, and all the residents around us, and something that will be used and get kind of be a beautiful building, if you will, which would hopefully activate the corner and increase everybody's property value around.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And again, I muted everyone, so if you did want to ask a question, you'll have to unmute yourself, and or you can type it. There's a chat function on Zoom. You can type me a question. I'm gonna again kind of let you know my name's Adam Sager. I'm a civil engineer, and we do land development work, and so we're hired. We become a pretty good middleman if you have questions about anything at all, because we work with the city staff, with the aldermen, with the clients, the developers, the contractors, and we kind of get our fingers in a little bit of everything, and we're in the middle of it all. So certainly if you have any questions related to the site plan, the zoning, or anything at all, just let us know.
Adam, this is Joey. Honestly, I can't remember. Did you mention how many stories this was going to be?
Yes, we are, Joey. We're applying for 2 stories, but the reason for doing that is to not paint us too far in a box. And I want everybody on the call to understand that we're in the zoning process. This isn't the final process where we get down into the nitty gritty of details of every last screw and nut and bolt, but this is where we set the parameters for what can go on this corner. And so we've restricted it to 2 stories max, Joey, in our application. Right now, I can honestly tell you that we're only anticipating using 1 story because what is typically going to happen on a small commercial is that the parking requirements restrict you from doing too much square footage. And so to answer your question, and you know all this, Joey, I'm just kind of saying this for everybody, that we're right now it's drawn as 1 story, and that's how it's parked, and that's what our intent is. But just to let you know, we applied for 2 in case it makes sense to do a smaller building and do a cute little 2-story cottage type of style. So that's why we applied that way. Yeah, other restrictions, again, just so people know, we are proposing the uses of clinic, office, general services, and I think restaurant is another one because everybody likes a coffee shop, right? Not that it's ever going to happen, but those kind of small neighborhood commercial services is what we've put on there. And that means that if you're anything else, you're not allowed on there. So the PD zoning does set forth the uses that you can and can't do on the property. And so we've purposefully restricted ourselves to basically what you would expect to see in a small neighborhood commercial on the corner here.
Has the city of Franklin decided when the road is West Main Street is going to be expanded?
No, ma'am, we have not heard the timing of any of that. We have spoken with engineering about the road ultimately being widened, which is why we have to dedicate right-of-way, but we were not provided any time frame on that. And Joey, I don't know if you have any information on that. That's all I know, so I don't know that.
I would have to defer to engineering, but I do know that it's a state route, so it's any expansion or improvements to West Main would have to be done through TDOT, which is a very lengthy process, and I have not heard of any timeline for the widening of West Main.
Okay.
This is Christina Potts. I had a question. I just wanted to know how separated the shared driveway would be.
Are you asking for dimensions or more like
Well, no, I
function?
just mean like how much use and things are going to occur. Is that going to be like, is that temporary, or is that just going to be the second entrance or a main entrance? I wasn't real clear on that.
Yeah, the existing gravel drive that you have now kind of straddles the property line and goes back and forth. And so what our intent would be, Ms. Potts, is to come in here with a full paved access and then provide a cross access easement between yourself and the property so that instead of coming up the gravel drive as is, you would enter in a little bit over and come in, and then we would provide a paved strip over to your property to where you would have your parking area there. And so, you know, it would function the same. In other words, you're coming in relatively at the same point along West Main. It would be paved now, but it would be a shared access. The level of traffic that comes in and out of this facility is not expected to be high. It's going to be more like, you know, if it's an optometric office, I don't know if you have glasses, but you've probably been to an optometry office or a dental office. So you're probably looking at that level of traffic. And most of the traffic is shown to go in and out of downs. So we don't expect a whole lot of traffic to come in and out off of West Main. Does that help answer it?
Yeah.
And we have this reserved until 7:30. If nobody else pipes up or wants to have any questions or comments or anything, I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So again, I've got a half hour to answer questions, but if everybody is I guess, satisfied or doesn't have any more questions, we don't have to sit here the whole time either. So I'll give it maybe 2 more minutes, and if nobody has anything, we'll go ahead and end it just to be respectful of everybody's time.
Will you keep us posted regarding the process?
Yes, ma'am.
And
Yes, and let me touch base on that very quickly. I don't have the schedule in front of me, but we have already submitted to the Franklin for what's called a pre-app meeting. That's where I've gotten some of my feedback from Franklin staff already. This meeting here tonight is a pre-scheduled community meeting that is part of their calendar. And right now, if we stay on track, we're going to be going forward to, we've got to continue to submit drawings and work with Franklin staff. And it is anticipated to go to an October Planning Commission meeting. And then if we continue on from Planning Commission and it's still going well, then we're going to go on to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. And at each one of those, I believe, Joey, do they automatically get notices from the city for the public hearings?
The applicants will be submitting or sending out another round of notices for the Planning Commission meeting. So if things stay on track, that'll be the October Planning Commission meeting. That's always the last Thursday of the month, or the third Thursday of the month, I think. Anyway, you'll get a notice with the date of the meeting. And then also we'll post signs on the property, kind of notifying when that will be going to Planning Commission and the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. And it will also be noticed in the paper as well as on the city website. So you'll be getting another round of mailed notices before the Planning Commission meeting.
thank you.
I'd like to ask a question. Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just tuned in. I'm sorry, I was late. I didn't get in on the front end of it. But the project that's proposed, the new commercial building, is it the empty lot that sits across from Limestone Missionary Baptist Church at the intersection?
Can you repeat that? I heard you're breaking up a little bit. I heard that you're asking about something about opposite of Limestone.
Yeah, is it in the empty parking, empty field across the street from Limestone? I'm trying to get,
Oh, you're asking where is this property?
yeah.
Yeah, let me go back up to the map. So this is Downs Boulevard in West Main, and on the south side of the intersection is Vulcan Material. That's the big rock quarry. That's on the southern quadrant. On the right or the east side is the church. On the north side is the 3 acres of empty commercial right now, and then we're on the west side. So we're these two right here, where we have it highlighted in red. That's where we're talking about.
Okay, so I still don't. I'm just trying to. I live at 1607 West Main. I'm the only house on the side of the state garage. I'm sandwiched in between Limestone and the state garage. I'm just trying to get a picture of is it the big empty lot at the corner of the intersection that's across the street from Limestone, on the same side as Fraser Auto Detail.
And is your name Tracy? Tracy, can you see the computer screen?
I see the map.
All right, watch this. So if you are paying attention, this might help. So I just switched over to Google Maps, and I'm going to go to Street View. And so are you familiar with Vulcan, and does this help?
Yeah, where Vulcan is.
So if you're right here on West Main, we're this empty lot right here.
Oh, to the left. Okay. where that lot, that's another lot. It's been empty for years over there.
Yeah, yeah, it's that empty lot right on the corner, or I can kind of come down here and turn
Okay.
around. It's that
Oh,
right
yeah,
there.
okay. Yeah, okay, I got you. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. I was just trying to get a visual. I couldn't get it.
Sure.
And you said the traffic will be flowing from West Main side into that facility, that building, into the commercial buildings? The traffic will
Yeah,
be
we're
flowing, turning into that from West Main?
yes, there will be a right in, right out on West Main, and then a full access over here onto Downs.
Mhm.
And whenever we have done some preliminary studies on uses such as small commercial, it is anticipated that probably more people will be coming in and out off of Downs than on West Main.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, it'll have an access to both.
And the traffic, because the traffic is a mess now. You said that the volume of traffic would be low?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, relatively speaking, for these two roads, I know we're all experiencing traffic in our communities, but for this type of use, for a small neighborhood commercial building, it's not a big, intense use where you would see hundreds of cars coming in and out. You're talking about a small number of vehicles relative to these roads and the commercial around you. And so, for example, if we were to go back to this map, you know what it looks like up and down West Main and then Downs. These buildings right here, like these commercial buildings that are up on Downs, you can see
Mhm.
those buildings right there are probably almost as big as the entire property. So these are bigger buildings than what we would be proposing. What we would be proposing is something smaller, and so it's not going to generate as much traffic. So you're looking at, you know, our intent is optometry, dental, chiropractor, business services, somebody's office, maybe an engineering or an architecture office, a law firm, like that type of level of traffic.
Mhm. Would it be built on the same style as what's on Downs now?
No, it's going to be we are not intending to build what we call like big box or regular box commercial. We want this to be more architecturally aesthetic to the area.
Mhm.
We're intentional about it being nice and beautiful and modern and just being a really nice looking building on the corner.
Mhm. Okay. Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yes. Yes, Tracy, thank you. All right. Anybody else?
Adam, this is Rick. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. Would you make sure Miss Potts knows that that easement will be dedicated and it'll always be open for her access to her home there?
Yes. Let me get back to that. So if this were to go through, it would be a paved access easement, and there would be a public access easement from both Downs and Main, and that would be to the benefit of Ms. Potts for the shared access easement that would come in off of there, and that would run with the land.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. With that, I'm going to give you a final screen there that has my email address on it. If any of y'all have any questions along the way, you are more than welcome to email me, adam@daleandassociates.net. Again, that's all spelled out, adam@DALEAND We're happy to take any questions or some things you may have forgotten and want to follow up, and that's fine. And like you heard Joey say, there will be notices sent out for the public hearings. And this is like step one in the process. So it will take several months to go through this process, and we're happy to answer any questions along the way. So with that, Joey, unless you have anything else that needs to be said from Franklin's side, I appreciate everybody being on the call, and I think I'm good. So are you okay with that, Joey?
Yep, I think that's okay.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us this evening, and please reach out if you need anything else. Thank you all.
Thanks,
Thank
Adam.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.